It's moving.
It's moving? How do you mean?
It's going bigger.
Okay, I thought you meant the room was moving. I was like, I don't feel it. I don't. I was like,
do you feel like you're on a boat?
Like, I don't. That's new.
I was trying to trick you to see what you thought.
Like, I don't know, maybe the sepsis is
still in there somewhere.
Yeah, it had an effect on me because I don't feel anything. Sounds good.
Do you have blue painter's tape on your fingers right now?
It's not painter's tape. So there's it was described as like restaurant things. So I don't know if there's like a reason restaurant like bandages have to be blue, but I could only find like the ones that like fold over for your finger in like blue for some reason. So I have like 100 of them, and because I have to change them all the time. But yeah, all my fingers have effectively fallen off.
That's where we're at.
Yeah, so I've got to go to the doctor next week to have him look, see what revision might need to happen, but I'm otherwise done. So this one didn't turn out too bad.
No. Almost a year, Trent.
Yeah, that's what the doctor said. 9 months to a year for them all to self-resolve.
Does it feel like it's been, this is not, I mean, we're recording, but this is just me talking to you. Like, does it feel like it's been a year, almost a year, right? June would be a year. Like, how does that?
June would be a year. It feels like one of those things, kind of like COVID. Like, it feels both like it was a very long time ago and also yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, it's a weird thing to kind of frame time-wise.
Right.
Yeah. So it's been a journey.
Yeah. What's been like the biggest piece of the journey that you've learned from it?
Probably patience, because there was nothing I could really do other than wait, and I am not inherently a patient person. And so, but as I described to Gina, who was also astonished that I waited this long, I was like, when there's a win at the end, then I'm willing to be patient. So this felt like a win versus having much shorter fingers.
Listen, when Gina was ever like, Trent is bound and determined to get out of this hospital like now, I was like, could he just relax for a second?
Yeah, I was, well, there's a brief stint where I think I developed a, what I'd say a minor opioid addiction, because they were giving me Dilaudid, like whenever I asked, and it was great. And they were like, you can have this like as often as every 2 hours, and I was like, cool, keep it coming.
Great.
And then after like 24 hours, they were like, the doctor said to stop. And so I was like, oh, fine. And then I had to go for dialysis like that next morning, and dialysis is a terrible experience. So you're sitting there for 4 hours while they flush your system. And I was like, man, was my back itchy, and like I was like irritable, and I'm like I gotta get out. Like I'm like all of a sudden, and I got back to the room, and I was like, I've got to get out of this hospital. Like I need to change rooms. Like they put me in a different room. I was like, I need the patient advocate in here, and like another 24 hours passed, and I was like, that was a really weird like shift in like my personality and like the itchiness. I was like, which is clearly like an opioid withdrawal effect. I was like, oh yeah, I get it now. Like that's how quick that can take hold. And so I stopped doing the Dilaudid.
You were like, I'm going home, I'm taking physical therapy at home, you're not keeping me in this hospital. Gina's like, Lindsay, I don't know what to do. Like he can't have his computer, he can't have his phone. And at first she didn't tell me why, and I was like, oh my God, give the man something to keep him occupied.
I literally had Alyssa bring a laptop in at one point because Bitcoin was down, and I was like, I need to buy it right now, because all I could watch was like 3 channels, because number one, it was hard to push the buttons because my fingers were also in so much pain, and so I could only I watched Wimbledon and the news like consistently because I couldn't sleep, and so Wimbledon was the only thing on at 4 a.m. But that was an experience. But yeah, I had to get out of there, and they were telling me I was going to be in a rehab facility for like months, and I was like, what do you need to see me do? And they were like, well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to you, but like you should be in a rehab facility because you're not going to be like, you shouldn't be in a shower by yourself, and you shouldn't be like all this stuff because you're not stable. And I was like, well, let me like give me a goal, and so they were like, well, if you can like walk to the nurse's station back on your own, we can do it. So they had me like strapped like one of those ratchet strap type things like around me, and like held on in case I fell, and I had to like it took me a few days to get there, but I was like, yeah, I can do that. And they were like, well, set up your house for basically as if you're disabled. And so I had like the grips on the walls and all the stuff, and yeah, because I couldn't had to sit on a old person stool in the shower and all that. And I have to shower with basically these big plastic oven mitts because I couldn't get these wet. So it's like a cat playing with a ball of yarn.
What a year!
Yeah, it's been an adventure. So
what a 9 months.
Yeah, but we're about to have our best month since 2021 here in April. So we're making progress.
You got a good team.
We do. We're very fortunate. We have a great leadership team, and we have great agents, and we continue to recruit. Just had a big recruiting event the other day, so
yeah,
going to have another hopefully 5 or 6 folks.
Yeah, you've got some great players on your team that are just a lot of fun.
Yeah, we do, and a lot that are contributing to the culture now. Derek Blanton has come on and he's been hosting these kind of Wednesday masterminds in the office and just trying to get people's mindset right. And he's going through it himself, so it's not talking from on high kind of thing. He's like, it's a challenging market. He's had a bunch of terminations lately. He's got some listings that aren't moving, and he's just sends out kind of Wednesday wisdom and quotes and things, and just kind of keeps people going. And somebody with his experience doing 70-80 listings a year, people tend to listen to their fellow agent more than they do those of us in leadership. So it's one thing to say from my position, keep your head up. It's another when you've got an agent who's saying, I know we're all feeling it, but the only way through it is through it. So
yeah. So we jumped all over the place. So let's do a quick introduction of who you are, and then let's get the backstory, because obviously you're running this really big team now, but that's not where you started. So yeah. I'm excited. You are Trent Corbin of the Redbud Group. You are the rainmaker of the Redbud Group.
I am. Trent Corbin, founder and owner of the Redbud Group, and we are a team of about 60 agents now, hopefully soon to be 75 or so as we continue to recruit. I've been doing this since 2015 when we came to Keller Williams, so about 10 years. It'll be 10 years in July. Wow. July 5th, actually, I think is my kind of milestone date for a number of things. That was also my first day in real estate in 2013, so it kind of all happens around that July 4th date.
That's perfect.
Independence Day.
Yep. When you gained your independence from work, right?
Yep. And we talk about one of the things that we pitch to the agents who join our team is that we sell freedom effectively, that people are getting into this business because they want autonomy and they want freedom, and whether that's freedom from the corporate world, freedom from a past relationship, freedom to do what they want with their money. We try to lean into that because that's why we got into this business. And unfortunately, we don't have a great metric for freedom. And so our best metric is wealth. And so one of our only 10-year goal is to create 100 millionaires. And so that we can measure in kind of what we pay people. And so everything we do is designed around compensating people well, helping them build wealth and access that freedom.
That's awesome. I love how that theme has just carried through. It carries through from when you joined to right straight through your team. Yeah. So $325 million last year.
Yep, give or take.
Yeah. But that's not where you started. Take me back to day one. Okay. What did it look like before you got into the real estate hustle, before the listings and the commission checks? Where'd you start and why real estate?
Yeah, so I'll go back, not all the way to my birth, but I'll go back a little bit of a way because part of the story is important. So when I got out of college, I went straight into the investment banking world. I had a background in engineering, but didn't see the income potential there. And with the opportunities in investment banking, that seemed like where I wanted to spend my time. And the group that I joined was very similar to what you saw in the movie The Big Short. So we did very similar things. We did not do it with mortgages, but we did with corporate credit, middle market credit. So managed a CLO, and that was really interesting to be a part of. But if you remember in The Big Short, it all eventually falls apart. Same thing happened to us. Mm-hmm. Didn't hit Main Street quite in the same way. But it did. Everything was crumbling around us, and my friends and I had all been young and not necessarily dumb, but dumb enough to have bought homes at what was likely the peak in 2006, 2007. And when everything fell apart, because back then we were doing 100% financing, and so we had no equity, and so any price depreciation basically put us upside down. And so we all were stuck with these homes and condos at the same time we were losing jobs, and the bank was letting people go. And so in the midst of that, a lot of my colleagues and friends took jobs in other cities or went back to school. And I was fortunate enough to find a job in the merger and acquisition space here in town for a little regional merger M&A shop. And in doing so, I said, hey, by the way, if you're not selling your house, I could just post it on Craigslist, help you find a tenant, and I'll collect the rent and I'll send you a check. I'll take $100 out of the rent and we'll call it even. And they said, oh, that'd be great. And so I said, sure, I'll do that. And I had no idea at the time that required a real estate license or any of that stuff. So all the things they tell you never do in real estate school, like commingling funds and all that, I was doing that. Just in personal, collecting checks in my personal account and paying out of that. It was just very sloppy. But I did realize within a few months that I needed a real estate license. So that was in 2009. I went and got my real estate license so that I could do it legitimately, because word was getting around and I was growing that business almost by accident. And so I sat in the back of the real estate class with my hat pulled low so that nobody would notice that I was already running a real estate business. Did that, so I had a guy who was running the operations of that, just the day-to-day, because I continued to be in the investment banking space. And in 2013, well, let me back up a little bit, 2012, the Democratic National Convention came to town. And so we did a big push to do short-term rentals because Airbnb wasn't a thing. Little did I know Airbnb could be a bigger thing, so I totally whiffed on that idea. But we made a lot of money in a very short amount of time, and it kind of quadrupled our long-term business because of the press we got and the media attention. And so after that, I was no longer working, and we had a decision to make, and me and the gentleman who was running the day-to-day operation sort of had we viewed the world in a different way. We saw a different path forward. And so I said, look, there's two ways this can go. I can either take it and go do it on my own, or you can buy it from me since you've been running it and do it your way. And he chose to buy it from me and do it his way. And at that point, I had no real job, a little bit of capital, and a real estate license. And I was doing stand-up comedy just to, get my mind right, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so actually in the process of doing comedy and property management, I met Rachel Demeter, who invited me to join the Lodestone Group. And I think I was the third real estate agent there with Marissa. And that was 2013, July 5th, 2013 was my first day at Lodestone. And so we started there. And one of the things that stuck with me was when I got there, and this is not a knock against Marissa, but the proposal was, if you bring a lead, you keep 60% of the commission. If we give you a lead, you keep 40%. And I said, great, I'll live off of your leads until I build my own book. And I really liked the idea of the digital, growing the business through digital means, and how could I do what I had done with the Democratic National Convention at a larger scale of brokerage where the margins should be higher and all that. And so I kind of started down that path, and what became clear once I got to Lodestone, some things had changed and there were no longer leads to be given. And so I pretty quickly realized I had to go find the business myself. And that took me, so my first closing was in November of 2013, so about 5 months from when I started. And it was a good friend of ours. And then my second closing was in December, which was the woman who is now my wife, bought the house that we lived in for the next 10 years. And that was, so December, so in my first 6 months, I got 2 transactions done, both Sphere, but I realized that was not going to sustain me. And so I was trying different things and buying leads and testing different avenues, and eventually came across Zillow. And Zillow was the thing that made the most sense to me, because I figured, I can spend a lot of money and a lot of time trying to generate the number of eyeballs that Zillow gets, or I can acknowledge that Zillow has beaten me to the punch and I can leverage their marketing and their platform. And back then, the way you did it is you could buy leads, buy a percentage of the zip code. and you would get a certain number of leads. And if you, the way I describe it is I could put in $100 and I could get $200 out. And once I realized that was happening, I just started adding zeros to that. So every time I would succeed with, a lead from Zillow, I would just double down and buy more and more leads. And so I was doing that, and it was working great. And then that became sort of the reason I ended up kind of doing things backwards, because I realized if I bought all of the zip codes, all of the market share of all the zip codes, then no one else could do what I was doing. And so my theory was I need to buy as many zip codes as fast as possible and box out my competition. So I leaned into that really hard, really aggressively, and obviously got to a point where I couldn't handle the lead volume. So my next move was to hire a buyer's agent. And the first buyer's agent that I hired, I found him on Craigslist, which everybody loves to hear that story.
You and Craigslist.
I know. And it wasn't in the casual encounters section.
Okay, good.
Just to be clear. But I did find, so Keith Magnuson was the first. I still have the original email exchange where words like world domination and if I only do 20 million next year, I'm not going to be happy. That kind of language was being used. And so I bring that up every now and then, which interestingly enough, he joined me July 5th of 2015.
Really?
And so we started working together literally, and that kind of precipitated me leaving Lodestone, and we were working at the time out of my living room in that same house that Alyssa had bought in December of 2013. And so we started there, and we eventually got to a place where we had some momentum, but my original pitch to him was, you're just gonna be following me around, be my assistant, do what I ask you to do. I'm still gonna handle the leads. That lasted about 30 days, and I was like, I can't do this, you have to take leads, we have to hire more agents. And so it was me and a bunch of agents. I didn't get an admin first, I didn't do any of that, so I did it in the wrong order. But that was kind of the genesis of the whole thing, and so that was what we leaned into, was Zillow initially and Realtor.com as well, to generate most of our business.
You really kind of did do it backwards, huh?
I did. That's I'm a ready, fire, aim kind of guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2015, you've now kind of started to create your own team.
Yes.
Slowly. What happened after that?
Yeah, so 2015, I think I've got it figured out. So I start buying, more zip codes. We're hiring agents. Basically, my interview process is, let's meet for coffee, and if you can fog a mirror, I'll hire you. And that worked fairly well, in the sense that we got more bodies in the door. But one of the things that we did not do is we did not have great systems. We did not have great controls. And so what happened, I ended up getting married in 2016. And at that point, that was kind of a natural time to stress test the system. So I was obviously going to come out of production, go get married, go on my honeymoon, come back. And in doing so, within a few months, it became apparent that all of our profit was coming from my production, because I was still in production at the time prior to that. And when I came out, what I noticed was we obviously weren't converting leads as well as I had been, and the splits were not, nobody cares about your money as much as you do. So people would let leads go and just not give them the same effort. And once you start sharing commissions with another person, obviously you're cutting in half that revenue. And so pretty quickly some things started to unravel and set off alarm bells. And so I had to start really digging into finding the right CRM, finding the right, I was going to Zillow conferences, learning what other people were doing, layering in the things that we needed, hired an admin finally, just to help me manage my time and my calendar. And so what kind of started to happen is, we hit a ceiling. We were stuck around 15 to 20 agents, and there was a lot of turnover, and we had to start letting some people go that weren't performing and holding people more accountable. And that continued, and there were some times where things got tight, because I really didn't want to let go of the market share that I had bought on Zillow. So there were some pretty intense moments. As a matter of fact, I think in 2017, I distinctly remember a day when my credit card that I had on file with Zillow was maxed out, and they said, you've got to make a payment, and there was no money to make a payment. And and I said, well, hold on, let me see if I can find another credit card. And they said, look, we can give you, I think it was like 30 days to get caught up. But again, once you're in that cycle, it's really hard to dig out. And 30 days came and went. At 30 days, they dropped all my zip codes. And every salesperson at Zillow called everyone in the marketplace and said, Trent can't pay his bills. Now's the opportunity. And so within 24 hours of that, I'm getting calls from everybody, competitors, friends, and everyone saying what's going on. So that was obviously not fun. That was a little, little embarrassing, obviously, but I had pushed myself to the max on that. And we eventually got caught up on payment, picked our zip codes back up, because we own so much. Even when we created that vacuum, other people couldn't step in because the spend was so much. So we really didn't lose much ground. But that was obviously another kind of wake up call. And so in late 2017, early 2018, we realized something had to change, and there's only two ways to fix a profit problem: revenue and cost. And so we didn't really have many costs because it was me and an EA and our leads, and if we cut leads, then we hurt revenue. So what we had to do is adjust splits and adjust them in a way that was not favorable to the agents. And so that precipitated another wave of turnover. And so we lost a lot of people. It was a very chaotic, stressful time. And that was when we started down the path of EOS, which is, if you the book Traction and Rocket Fuel, EOS is the entrepreneurial operating system. And so that became the way that we ran the business. We tried to do it on our own at first, and it kind of worked, but ultimately when we actually hired an implementer, that was what really made the difference for us. But at the same time that we were doing that, Zillow in the summer of 2018 was rolling out their Zillow Offers product. And again, we were the biggest still, even though we weren't making a ton of money, we were the biggest Zillow, had the most Zillow market share at the time. And
Zillow Offers was their cash buying program, where they were basically going in and buying a person's house in cash and then relisting it.
Exactly. Very much in response to Opendoor.
Yeah.
Opendoor kind of led the charge with iBuyers, and so Zillow said, we don't want to risk losing that market share if this is going to be the new way forward. And so they jumped in, started doing it, and it happened very quickly. We had the opportunity to interview in the summer of 2018, and I remember getting the call on the way, actually it was probably early fall when we interviewed, and we just moved into a new space, which was a glorified warehouse because it was the cheapest rent we could find, about 5,000 square feet. And when they came in to interview, we still had like wires hanging from the ceiling, and it was a mess, but we were like, this is where we're going, this is gonna look great and all this stuff. And we had like one fake plant in the corner.
It made it homey.
And it did. And I think they loved that. They loved our entrepreneurial kind of spirit and drive. And we we had a whole presentation, PowerPoint and all the stuff, and which I borrowed from my old investment banking days, my old PowerPoint days, put together something that was, I think, it was pretty well done at the end of the day, and well done enough that we won. And so when we did that, and we got the call, I remember getting in the Uber to go to the airport for Zillow's Unlock event, which was, I don't even know if it was called Unlock back then, but October of 2018, it was always around Halloween, so towards the end of the month. And Jay Franco called and he said, Trent, I want to tell you congratulations. You've been awarded Zillow Offers. I said, that's awesome. He said, just so you know, we're going to be doing a dry run of your team, running the process the week after Thanksgiving. So you've got about 30 days to be up and running. And then we're live mid-December. So 45 days to get there, and you're going to need pricing analysts and acquisition specialists and disposition specialists and all this stuff And at that time, we had about 25 agents. Within 6 months, we had 75 people on the team. We had to move very quickly. And so we scaled. Thankfully, we had that bigger space. We scaled very quickly. And it was like we were shot out of a cannon. Zillow at one point was acquiring 30 to 40 homes a week and then reselling the same number. And we were the exclusive representative on that in all of Charlotte. And so that was a lot of fun, but obviously that wound down in post-COVID. And so we had a few years of really exciting high volume years. Granted, we trade, that product, we traded margin for volume, but it was still very profitable to do. And that kind of gave us another kind of step function in our growth, so that we were in that 60 to 70 agent range, which we've maintained since. And then as we kind of unwound that and continued to streamline the business, it did put some pressure on margin. We probably held on to some employees longer than we should have, but you do what you do, and so now we're a lot leaner. And what we've done is now gone back the other way, where we are actually compensating agents very aggressively because we're trying to recruit the best of the best. And again, our intent is the best performing agents should also be the best paid agents, and we want people to again be in pursuit of that wealth as a proxy for freedom.
You said you brought in EOS, which I've read the book and I think it's fantastic. It is not my style, but you hired an implementer.
Yes.
Who was your implementer that you hired?
So Neil McLean, and he's still our implementer. So it's supposed to be a 2-year stint, and then you kind of graduate and you self-manage the process. But what we have found is, so we meet with him 5 days a year, quarterly, and then our annual is a 2-day event. And so what we've found is that the whole premise of EOS is that we live in this 90-day world. And so we never really do too much detail in anything that's more than 90 days. So we meet quarterly, set 90-day rocks, and then have weekly meetings to hit those rocks, and we reset every 90 days. Having a third party in the room is a huge help for us, because otherwise we let each other off the hook too easily. That additional accountability is really helpful. And so we told him, look, as long as you're willing to work with us, we'd love to continue this. So we're, if we started that in 2018-ish, we're now 7 years in, and we continue to just met with him a few weeks ago. And the problems that we have are a little less chaotic, a little, they're more growth oriented, a little more thoughtful than they were back then, when a lot was just trying to clean up the mess I had created in the early days. And so that's been great. I mean, it just gives us a structure to run the business, especially when we first started, because what tends to happen for people who are considered visionaries in the world of EOS, which sounds fancier than it is. It really means we're just not good at getting things done. We just have a lot of big ideas, and then we freak everyone out because we have a new idea every day, and we're everything's being whipped around and changed all the time, and so it restricts that person, me in our case, to not be freaking everybody out by changing everything every minute. And so that helped a lot to just have that structure, and it helped me better understand who I am, how I think, and why that's not necessarily good for the broader company. It's not appreciated by the people who are the boots on the ground, because they tend to want more stability, and I thrive in chaos a little bit.
It has always been my favorite thing to watch as you and Gina and Bridgel, right? Your true core leadership group over there at Redbud. Like, you throw out all of this and Gina just kind of sits in the corner and takes her notes, and then all of a sudden she comes back with this perfectly designed action plan. And some of your stuff is on there and some of it's not. Like, she's very specific about that. How has hiring someone like a Gina and a Bridgel, how has that really directed where your team is going and continues to go?
Yeah, so it's helped in a number of ways. Number one, anytime we bring somebody in for an interview, I give them a tour of our space. We always walk past Bridgel's room. Bridgel's office, and I tell people, Bridgel's here. He's our broker in charge in our office, but he's also everyone's therapist. And then I also add that if I ever left the team, people would raise an eyebrow, but if Bridgel left, people would freak out. And that's certainly true. The guy's there for everybody. He's the most steady, kind of never panicked, always calm, always there to help. And I swear the guy never sleeps. I mean, he's just always talking to agents and helping them solve problems. And I think he just genuinely loves it. I think that's where he finds his strength. So he's a critical element in that regard, because I am not able to do at all what he does. I'm not the real estate resource. I'm too far removed from production. I tend to not give the best answers, because I give a visionary type answer, a salesperson type answer, where I'm like, solve it by throwing money at it, or solve it, or just
not have your license and do property management.
Just cut the corner and do all the things. And so he is very good about solving things in the right way. And then, like I said, Gina tends to filter a lot of my ideas and the noise and hold me accountable to, again, going down that path of doing something that would risk the integrity of what we are trying to do. And so I think people really appreciate, whether they know it or not, because not everybody's been around to know what things were like when it was just me. But I think what people experience is that Gina prevents me from doing some of the things that I would otherwise do that are probably not thought out more than one step into the future, because I think that I see how things are going to play out and that they will work out. And I'm right sometimes, but I'm also wrong a lot. And so she tends to highlight the ways in which things could go wrong, and often we have multiple conversations, and by the end I just sort of concede that we should actually do it the way she's describing, and we're all better off for it. So and I think, as you mentioned, when I was sick last summer and was not around for 2 months, and Gina and Bridgel were at the helm, our team's production actually went up. And then when I returned, our team's production went back down.
I think you got sick on purpose.
Yeah, I think, well, if nothing else, I should make note of the trend there.
Okay, but don't do that again.
Yeah, maybe not get sick, but maybe
not
I should
to
just
that
sort
level.
of like fade away for a few months every year, just to let things go better. But yeah, they're critical to, I think, just stabilizing the team, because there's the most value that I added, and probably continue to add in some ways, but it's mitigated to a degree, is that I will lean into risk, and I'm willing to risk everything to get to what I think is going to be the future iteration. And Gina and Bridgel help to make sure that we're taking those risks, but not necessarily truly risking everything. Because again, one of the things that we've talked about is, as soon as I sense that something has worked, whether we have data or not that it has, as soon as I sense that it's worked, I'm ready to take the next risk. Mm-hmm. I'm ready to do the next thing. And they are very good about saying, well, this we haven't confirmed that this is working yet. So let's give it a little more time. Again, I tend to be very impatient and say, well, yeah, no, but the trend is headed the right direction, so it seems like it's worked. And they're like, well, but that could also just be a fluke, and that's one data point, and that's not really.
It's only enough. 30 days.
Exactly, that's not enough for an analysis. And so, for example, we're building some homes right now, and I'm very excited about it. We've got a great builder partner that we're working with, and.
Is that the one that's here in the office that you're
No,
working?
we're working with them as well,
yeah.
But the ones that on these particular projects are a different group. And so we identified some lots off market, had the opportunity, picked them up. And once we did, that same person who brought those lots to us has brought us some more opportunities. And I was ready and willing to be like, let's do another one. It's a builder product, like it should be very predictable, and they've got a system and it's a fixed plan, and Gina and Bridget both pumped the brakes on that a little bit. And it's a good thing they did, because we had some of the financing that we thought was going to be in place ended up changing. We had to change lenders and do some things differently. But we are at a point now where like foundations have been poured and we're moving forward, and we should be on market here soon. But if it was up to me, we would have had 10 of them in the works before we realized the financing was going to be an issue, and that would have put an additional strain on finances in the business, and that kind of thing. As Bridget and Gina have said, my willingness to take more risks to get the next win has a tendency to inadvertently put other people's wins at risk. And so one of our core focus is win big and win often. And so we talk in the language of victory and wins. And so I want to go out and win and play again and experience that win. But I also realize that there's a bit of a gambler in me. And the thing about gamblers is we don't really care if we win or lose. We just like to play. And so I'm ready to play again, even though I don't know if I've won or lost the last bet. And if I tend to have lost, then it causes chaos, which is where I thrive. And so I'm like, good, chaos, things to fix. But for everyone else, that's very unstable and concerning. And so they mitigate my tendency to do that. So there's a little bit of gas and brakes to us, and that's good. It's a really healthy tension. There's a lot of trust between us, and if you read the 5 dysfunctions, the core of getting to the results you want is a foundation of trust. And so we have healthy conflict and all the things that accountability amongst each other that generate good outcomes.
Yeah. One of the things that I have so respected of you in the time that I have known you in the last 5 years has been your ability to align yourself with the right people, bigger thinkers, bigger drivers, right? They always say you are like your top 5 people that you hang around with. Where do you find those rooms? So let's say I'm an agent and I want to aspire to have 60 teammates and run this big business. Where am I finding those rooms, and what rooms am I putting myself in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we, one of the things I started doing early, and I don't even really recall the exact motivation for it, but because I was leaning so heavily into Zillow and it was working, I started going to Zillow conferences. And then when I became part of KW, I started going to KW conferences. And just in getting to know people in those spaces, we were all kind of doing the same things and having the same conversations. And what you realize is you're going to meet some people who are doing things at your level. You're going to do things with people who are not quite doing what you're doing at your level, and you're going to meet people who are doing things beyond your level. And so my goal at all of those conferences was to talk to people doing things beyond my level, and like, what did it look like? How have you changed? Is this really the model? And as I got to know those people, what tends to happen is the rooms get smaller, and so you start to get invited to masterminds, and you start finding those opportunities to like, oh, hey, now you know some of the people at Zillow, and when the opportunities come around, people are reaching out to you. And so one of the things that I would encourage people to do is you have to put yourself in the room first, right? And so I was a nobody who was just like, I'm buying Zillow leads, and I had, at a high level looked at the models and knew kind of what splits were for teams and stuff. So I'd structured it that way. But all of the things that I learned, like, going to Vegas for the first time for the Zillow conference, meeting John Bolos many years ago and talking to him about what he was doing, and we kind of had the same mindset of like, we're coming in, we don't necessarily, he had more market share than I did when he kind of got in the Zillow game, but that mindset of like, how can we attack the market? How can we box out some people? Like, what's the next generation of real estate going to look like? And once you talk to enough people, you realize there's some people thinking that way and some people that aren't. And so I would just continue to have those conversations with those people. And I still do that today when I have the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I know you and John have had a great friendship. I mean, even just today, you've run into a problem, and that's the first person that you reached out to. And I love that. When John sat down with me, he told the whole story about you and him and how he was trying to get you to join him, and then it flipped the other way. So in that aspect, who's your biggest cheerleader right now in your life, and how did they keep you going?
Gosh, so I have to say my wife is while it's not always cheerleading, it's a support for the chaos, an understanding of who I'm going to be no matter what happens. And so, I mean, that's been, she is very different in a lot of ways than me, and grounds me in some, in good ways, and has helped me. There's a lot that comes with being a risk taker and a gambler and a hard driving person that is not good. There's a lot of collateral damage that comes from that, and she is an offsetting force, and so that has helped a lot in making sure that I channel those aspects of who I am into the right things and not into some of the more self-destructive behaviors and things that I can do, or taking unnecessary risks and things like that. So I think by far she has been, I mean, going back to when we first met in 2010, she has been that stabilizing force and believes in what I'm trying to do, with the asterisk of making sure I don't screw it all up. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. All right, back to real estate. We're in 2025. We have gone through some crazy times, and you have lived them, really, from the iBuyers and all those cash offerings to crazy low interest rates to stabilized interest rates, dare I say?
Sure.
Major price appreciation, especially in the Charlotte area here. We're through quarter one. You mentioned that April is feeling really solid for your team. What are you expecting for 2025?
So that's a great question. So I think I pay a lot of attention to the data, and so to me, again, with the exception of 2008 and the Great Recession, the housing collapse, historically, real estate is the first in and the first out of market lulls. Mm-hmm. And so removing the exception, removing the outlier of 2008, this seems like we have been from a unit count and volume count, we've been in our lull. And the early data from the spring seems to suggest we're starting that steady climb out. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to snap back to 6 million units a year, but real estate, all markets, generally capital markets, real estate markets, tend to be yo-yo on an escalator, right? And so things go up and down, but they generally go up. Mm-hmm. And so what we believe is that things are going to progressively get better. And so we're trying to make sure that we have the foundation, the right people on the team here in what I hope to be the end of the low point, so that as things continue to improve in our marketplace, we are capitalizing on that, because we did not lose ground in the last 2 years. And so it should be a more exaggerated upside coming out of it. And so what I think is going to happen in 2025, and there's a bunch of noise about what's happening with the administration and tariffs and all of that. But again, just zooming out, even before the tariff noise, I had shared with my team that I thought the S&P would probably bottom out sometime in the next 12 to 18 months around $4,800 to $5,000. I think we've seen that. They got down to about $4,900. And that was regardless of who was in office and whatever. I think if anything, some of the tariff stuff accelerated that, and so we hit it sooner. I I try to, Washington's going to Washington, and markets are going to market. So what I believe is going to happen is that we will get through the noise one way or another, and things will change. There will be people who come and go in Washington, but ultimately the American way of doing business ultimately prevails in all cases. It feels, having been through 2007, 2008, it feels very scary. It's very stressful right now, as all of us as professionals, but also for the consumer. And so what I think we're going to see is a climb through this, and probably some pivots by the administration, because no one wants to oversee an economic downturn or a prolonged economic downturn. And so I think we're actually on our way out as a real estate industry. I can't speak to exactly the timing of what's going to happen in the rest of the market. And obviously the puts and takes are, the real threat is the stagflation kind of concept, where we have low growth and high rates, and that becomes really problematic. But there are levers to be pulled if we see that, and some of that is controlled by the administration. Obviously, if we have something that's not stagflation, that inflation ends up under control, there's an argument that we're already entering a recession. So should the Fed pull the trigger sooner to lower rates? Should bond markets adjust to regain confidence in what is happening with American securities? I think this can be resolved in the next 90 days. And I do think that Scott Bessent generally has a pretty good head on his shoulders, and I think that he is, paying attention to all of the things that are going to happen. And I think there's just a lot of noise in the market, and it's a very scary thing to witness, because we aren't accustomed to things happening as quickly and being done as aggressively as they're being done right now. I don't know if that's right or wrong. That will be determined here in the next 90 to 180 days, but it will be interesting to see how it plays out. And I think from a real estate standpoint, almost no matter what, we should be okay.
Wrap it up. What is the one skill in this time of uncertainty that you feel a real estate agent should really hone in on right now? And you're not even out there in the daily. You just run this team. So that's kind of a loaded question for you, but I think it's good.
It's a good question. The thing that we spend a lot of time on this, because we've interviewed brand new agents and we've interviewed experienced agents, and the thing that always comes up that we just refer to as the X factor is something that isn't necessarily a skill. There are people that you can put them in any situation, they're going to figure it out. And there are people that you can give every opportunity in the world and they're not going to figure it out. I think the thing to be paying attention to is something in the realm of fearlessness, and to not get bogged down by the hand that you've been dealt, so to speak. So we talked about this recently, that look, in every situation and every day, you're going to experience good luck and bad luck. And you are either going to consider yourself a lucky person or an unlucky person. And chances are you've probably experienced both, but you've chosen which one to pay attention to. And so you can look at a situation, my illness, for example, last year, I was very unlucky. I had a very rare, unusual thing that happened. It cost me my fingertips, but that was the unlucky piece. The really lucky piece is that I'm still alive. I'm here today. I didn't lose more than my fingertips. All my organs have returned. Like, there's a lot of really good luck on the back half. And so the choice is, do I pay attention to the bad parts of it and let myself get bogged down by that, or do I pay attention to the good parts of it? And I think we have that choice in every situation that we're presented with. And so we have agents come to us a lot of times, and they talk about the leads I'm getting, and my clients just aren't moving, and I can't. And I'm like, well, as long as you keep telling yourself that story, that's what's going to continue to happen. It's the green car theory, right? If you're thinking about buying a green car, all of a sudden there's green cars everywhere, right? So if you think about the world as being a place full of opportunity and full of luck, and a downturn presents a unique opportunity because other agents are going to get out of the market, and that's going to be more market share for you. It's going to be the messaging that you tell yourself, and people describe it in different ways as positive affirmation or fake it till you make it, but you have to kind of force yourself into the mindset of, man, I'm lucky. I'm the luckiest person in the world. Like this is an opportunity, and I'm going to move forward. If you get caught in I got into the industry at the wrong time, things are turning on me, I can't catch a break, that will become your reality. And there's evidence to support that. I mean, if you think about the way we process information, your brain doesn't actually see the world or hear sounds. Signals are, sound waves are hitting your eardrums and then being processed by your brain to say that's a sound. Experience of what I see is being put in my brain and saying, this is what you're seeing, this is where this table is, and then I encounter it and I feel it, I go, yep, that is a table, and it is right there. And so if the same thing happens with the language you use with yourself. So if you say, I'm a lucky person, good things are happening to me, your brain starts to say, okay, well, I'm being told good things are happening and I'm lucky, so when I go out and experience the world and something happens, and it could be considered good or bad, your brain will learn that, oh, that was actually good luck. That was fortunate that lead didn't respond to me because the next call I got was ready to roll. And so there's a real science behind positive affirmation and fake it till you make it and all that stuff, because what you tell your brain makes your brain then look to confirm that reality. And so that can be problematic when it comes to things like political differences and things like that, because whatever you create confirmation bias for yourself. But when it comes to mindset and how to approach a market, that kind of, like, you have to think that way, and you have to tell yourself that you're a lucky person, you're going to be fortunate, you're going to win this game, and if you do that it ends up happening.
I loved it. You said before, we speak in victory.
Right.
We speak in victory.
Yep.
Trent, thank you for sitting with me. I love hearing your story. I have loved being in business with you the last 5 years, and I cannot wait to see what your team does in 2025.
Thank you. We're excited about it. We appreciate all that you all do for us. We can't imagine being anywhere but Keller Williams.
I love it.